All right, we are live. I'm just going to wait a few seconds here while I make sure that StreamYard and YouTube are talking to each other. And I do have to put my earphones in for the video, so I'm going to do that now while I'm waiting for everything to fire up. All right. Make sure that's okay. All right, there we go. All right, but welcome to the Rabyd Atheist. I'm your host, Ed Rabyd, former pastor turned atheist, now a compassionate anti-theist. So welcome there. But thanks everybody for stopping by. We're going to delve a little bit later into a little bit of a video, Can We Know God, by Jesus Film. Thankfully, I don't like monetize my streams with ads. So I'm going ad free with the streaming. So I rely more on donations and membership to support these streams. So it's more that because Jesus Film, the last time I did their channel, I didn't monetize it. So all YouTube said was you can't monetize it. For some reason, he's got like copyright stuff that he does. Probably it's some music he uses in the background, and I don't want to take the time to have YouTube take that out with their AI. So it's like, yeah, I don't care. So, but I don't monetize, so it'll be with him. So it'll be interesting because I don't do that. So, but yeah, so let's see who we got for a roll call tonight before I get too far in. And Fred was here first, early. Let's see. Then we had I Killed Earl, who I had a great stream with last week. But she's got her blog. She wrote a little article. It's on daylight savings time. So I'm with you. I've learned when you do political science and you study things like daylight savings time is one of those autistic rabbit holes I went down once, and suddenly realized it has more foibles than benefits. It just throws everybody off, and it's just not good for humans to change when they sleep like that 2 times every year. So there was that. So Martin's here. Martin, maybe we'll do a little pre thing while we're waiting for more people to show up for the video. But what Martin talked about bullying inside the church, and one of the reasons why Martin's one of my mods that has a very itchy trigger finger, and for good reasons. That's why I let it go, because I don't want him to feel uncomfortable. So, Anne, all right, good to see you. Anne, Katie was here. Saw you earlier on Dave's stream. So, yeah. And let's see, Evan's here. Claim without evidence is here. I'm sorry, Theus. I'm just going to do that with you. Like that's completely an unfalsifiable claim. And so it's daggum near useless. And so is your username. So I just don't have time for that anymore. You didn't see Jesus create the heavens and the earth, so how do you trust that? I mean, your argument works against you too. You realize that, right? Okay. No, it doesn't. Everything in life doesn't require faith. There's a lot of things I don't have faith about. I know they're true. Okay. The earth going around the sun, I know is true. Yeah, because I've studied the science. I know certain things are true because I've studied physics, okay, and chemistry and stuff. There's stuff I don't take on faith. I just know they're true. So yes, Darwin doesn't require faith, as Martin will point out. But before I get into the video, I wanted to talk about something Martin mentioned about religious bullying in the church. I, as a 40-year believer and 20 years in the ministry, saw a lot of that. Probably the most easy example you could do is like purity culture bullying. Like you'll hear a girl reveal that like she had sex with her boyfriend, and all of a sudden she becomes the pariah, and everybody like gangs up on her, and if she repents, she gets all kinds of other things. But the big thing about being religious, if you step out of line, sooner or later, the religious folks will bully you into submission. It's one of the things that religion does that's really, kind of bad all the way around. Like if you don't adhere to the tenets of whatever faith it is, yeah. So, yeah, it's like, how do we know your claims are true? Yeah, but it's the bullying that is justified in religion that happens all the time. And Martin is a victim of that. And so I'm very sensitive to that. He's talked with me about that before, as he mentioned, and it's something that I use often as a reason why religion needs to go away. So there's that. Hey, John, good to see you. It doesn't matter if I witnessed a book's writing or not. You didn't witness the Bible's writing either. So once again, your argument works against you. You really should think about these arguments a little bit more and see if they can be used against you. Okay. But you're also dangerously close to preaching, and I don't allow that here. If you want to present evidence, that's fine, but be warned. You've been warned by me, and I'm like the least itchy trigger finger there is, because you guys prove my point all the time. Hey, Alex, good to see you. Yes, claims are true because people say they're true. Flawless logic. Yeah, we're going to get a lot of that, I think, tonight with this video when I get to it, because it's kind of that way. There's a lot of claims. Yeah, you also are conflating two definitions of faith. Those are two very different things. I don't place my faith in much. See, that's where your presupposition that everybody has faith is false. I don't. Faith is something I very rarely use because I don't consider it to be a virtue. I consider it to be a vice. Faith is what you go to when you can't be virtuous about something. You run to that in order to justify your actions, whatever they might be. And you can justify pretty much anything that way. So, Darwin wasn't an atheist until the end, I don't think. And even then, I'm not sure. So he had a hard time with a Christian God at the end, mostly because of all the faith doesn't stop gravity. Yeah, it doesn't stop what we know. That's the problem with faith. So there's, all right. So I'm going to pull up this video, I've got some fun things I will do. You guys earned the hat reveal. So at about an hour, I'll put that on. Earlier, if we reach the other goal tonight, which if I meet the goal tonight, which is like 10 super chats, I will do a live stream on Friday, and I will open up StreamYard to let guests in. I will be still very selective about who that is, but and don't feel alienated or anything if I don't let you in. I'm trying to learn how to do that so that I can, like, I love what Captive Dust does when he has his stuff like their Saturday night at the Atheist. Tonight they're still going on and they're having a good time. I love the fact that he does that with guests, and there's a lot of very knowledgeable stuff in Captive Dust streams, and if you go back later you will definitely learn something, and that's kind of why I go back there, because he has a couple of people. So there's that. So, but yes, but let's pull up, and I got to stop him, go back, pause. But this is Jesus Films. Can we know God? And I'm a former theologian with a master's degree in theological studies. So these videos, I think, interest me more because I'm more interested in the assertions that people have when they put together their faith and how that works on the people's minds. And so that's more my issue. So thank you, Martin. Appreciate you. So definitely appreciate that. Thank you very much. So there's one. So I'm going to turn him up a little bit. And let's see what Jesus Film has to say about Can We Know God. This is part of his Wonder, what he calls his Wonder series, and we've done a couple of these before. He does, I think it's AI animation coupled with dialogue, and I'm never sure if this guy talking is an AI voice or actually a voice, so you have been warned.
Have you ever wondered, who is God?
All right, I want to stop right there. There's still some assumptions behind that question. Number one, he doesn't use the plural gods, so there's a monotheistic assumption there. Um, there's also, it's a question of knowledge. Can we know? So this is where the agnostic comes in and says, I'm not sure we can know the answer to that question, which is a fine answer. I don't necessarily agree with that anymore. I think that God could be tested as to his existence and he continues to fail it. And so, there's a falsifiability to a God claim. So, so there's that. And besides, as Evan has pointed out, Fangs is the God, obviously. So, yeah, and so nom nom and all that stuff. I the hat I revealed last Saturday is my official hat for speaking for Fangs. Having being like the Pope at that point when I speak for God, I speak for the God Fangs. So, yeah, this is the apocalypse. This is kind of the problem I have with the initial question. This is the problem. I'm glad this video is only 3 minutes long because I'm one of those people that hears something and it's like, no, there's bullshit behind the question. Okay, so it's kind of one of those things that I don't have a lot of patience for anymore. You need to prove your assumptions behind the question. So that's so there's that. Yes, nibbled for our sins. Uh, nibbled. Okay, there we go. Oh, so there's that aspect of it. But I already disagree with parts of the question and the assumption that we can't talk about polytheism already. Like we've already eliminated that with the question. Like, why can't it be a committee? I mean, let's be fair. If the world was designed by a committee of gods, that's more believable than a single omniscient, omnipotent being. If it was designed by a committee of beings with power, that actually makes a lot of sense when you look at things. So it makes a hell of a lot more sense. But I don't buy that either. But because there's other explanations that are now much more scientific and real. So there's that. Well, let's see. What else is he going to say? Let's just tilt this just back a second. There we go.
Can he be known? What is he like? The Holy Scriptures say the Lord...
Okay. I got to stop it there. Let's go back a little bit. Before he gets into the Nazi or the nonsense of, some people go that direction. Before he gets into the nonsense of talking about Holy Scriptures, well, can he be known? What's he like? The thing about this is those are epistemological questions, but we haven't even really addressed how we can know anything in the statement. And this is where theology makes this great leap. It always makes this great leap here of epistemology because you start to move from what do we know about God to what do we assume about God. So there's that. A horse designed by a committee, the camel. Oh, you mean the camel? Yeah, I mean, the platypus, that makes sense if it's designed by a committee. I'm sorry, I look at the world and it's all a committee where everybody had different agendas for the committee and they created the world. And that's why polytheism, when I look back at it after I deconverted, made more sense to me than monotheism, because at least polytheism is got the conflict nature, which is the reason suffering exists and evil exists and all that stuff. So, so I don't know if Fangs loves camels. Are we referring to the actual humpback beasts, or are we talking about cigarettes? Because I'm not sure about. See, because we don't have any sins really with Fangs other than religiously infected vegetables. So there we go. Fred fixed it. So, so there's that. But yeah, the problem with this video so far is he hasn't even really addressed how we can know anything. Okay, but he's going to make a major leap in assumption every time, and believers and theologians do this regularly. That we're going to just run to our assumptions that God exists, and there's a source of knowledge that we can get, that we can use to have that question answered. So here we go.
The Holy Scriptures say, the Lord our God,
Forgot about
the
that
Lord is one.
Okay, the Lord our God is God, and the Lord is one. So that's a declarative claim statement with no evidence provided for it. And if he's one, so we're definitely, do the scriptures go down monotheism has always been a question that I had, because I don't think the Old Testament does. Even though that claim is in the Bible, Yahweh clearly believes other gods exist the way he talks about them. Okay, when he, you shall have no other gods before me, assumes that other gods exist, okay, in reality. And the way the story is narrated, there's many times where he's actually at war with other gods, okay, and he gets defeated by other gods on occasion, because they have iron chariots. So the claims about God from the Bible are contradictory on this issue, because even though the Bible says that God is one, it doesn't seem to indicate that with the way it runs the narrative. And then when you get to the New Testament and people put together the doctrine of the Trinity, is he one at that point, or is he three, or is he both? Or and I've said it before, Trinitarianism is nothing more than polytheism trying to be monotheism. So so there's that. Yes, Fangs is eating the Catholic carrots to save us. I've made this note about the carrots though last time we streamed, and I think Earl missed it. But but the reason why like the carrot is screaming so loudly is it's objecting to Fangs eating it, because the carrot is the only completely holy, unsanctified vegetable there is that doesn't have any religion. That's why it's objecting. So the carrot for Fangsology is holy. The rest of them have been corrupted by religion. So there's that. How can we know gods? We can know their stories tell so much about societies that invented them, but to know a specific God, they would first have to exist. Yes. Yeah, you missed it. I created some Fangs lore that the reason why you have the carrot objecting and screaming is because it isn't corrupted by religion. It's the atheist vegetable. So, and it's also a phallic symbol for, I think either Katie or Ann added that one. so there's that. So, yeah, like Martin makes the obvious point. So there. I don't know, artichokes and asparagus. Got to remember all the other vegetables have been corrupted by religion in some way or shape or form. We're just trying to figure out exactly how. There's mysteries to Fangsology. I just want to remind everybody that. Yes, massacring the innocents. Yes. So, I don't know if we did with that with the turnip yet. I don't know. It's hard. Yeah. I don't know what about cucumbers. I know where you're going with that, Kyle, and welcome. I know where you're going with the cucumbers, but okay. So, I mean, I don't know how the vegetables get corrupted has been a good one. So Fang's lore is there. But yes, the carrot is the holy vegetable, and the vegetable that all strive to be So, and that's why it's so connected with bunnies. So you still vote for spirit. Well, that's fair. That's fair. All right. So he's about to dive into the Holy Scripture. So this is kind of a blind reaction for me, but I figure it's going to be mostly theology. So it's in my wheelhouse. So here we go.
He is almighty. He has no beginning, no end, and no need for anything.
Okay. So does the Bible make all those claims? Is he all powerful? I don't know. If you can't beat iron chariots, I would say you're not. He's certainly not all powerful in the sense of the omni-God argument. He's all knowing. Is he? The Bible presents him as having quandaries because he doesn't know certain things. Like Yahweh seems baffled, like he doesn't know the actual end game to the Abraham Isaac problem he gives. He has no need of everything. And I think we've gone over this before many times, theologically speaking. If God has no need of anything and he would know the end of the experiment before he even started, why run the experiment? Okay. If you don't have need for anything, why create in the first place? Something without need is something I can't fathom really in some respects, but like there's no, in other respects I can, like what does a rock need? You know, is need even a thing for certain things? And so the idea of God not having any needs, then he would have no need to create. He'd have no desire to create. It's not just a question of need. A want is a particular kind of need. You know, it's more about emotional fulfillment. So did God have a need for emotional fulfillment to create the world as a piece of artwork? These are the theological quandaries I got into a lot with all this stuff, but he makes like 4 claims about God based on the scriptures, and I'm not even sure that the scriptures agree about some of these claims. God seems to have certain desires to fulfill with his creation, and so that would assume that he's this is the problem with theology. It's like Captive Death and Company are dealing with a guy who says presuppositionalism destroys atheism, but once again, all presuppositionalism is designed to do is shut down atheist dialogue. It's very specific to atheists, by the way, presups. But what they don't seem to realize is the same arguments would work with any religion then. Like an Islamic person could use presup, and I know they do. There's, every religion in the world could presuppose that their claims are true, and then you have to prove them false. But that's once again, it's what they have. Okay, it's what you're right, Fred. The real problem with theism is what you have is a lot of claims that you can't prove, that you just take on faith, and faith thus becomes a very poor way of knowing anything. So.
He's eternal, existing outside of time.
Okay, I want to deal with that one too. If God exists outside of time, then why does he put things in a certain order in the Bible? Why is there a supposed historical order to revelation? If he's outside of time, that doesn't make any sense. Like his revelation would be one time, right at the beginning. This is all the stuff that you need to know as a human being, and it would sit there and it would stay with us. But yeah, it's like it doesn't have any evidential nature to it. I'm not even sure how existing outside the universe and time would even make sense. Okay, we struggle with that. Physics struggles with that idea. Without the universe to provide a framework, does anything make sense to the human mind is a really good question. So, I mean, yeah, Harry Potter was just Jesus. Let's see. If Jesus, babies are all to save the soul of not being born and to never sin and go to heaven. That is a theological reality check for a lot of people, John. I've used that argument when I was a theist. against people who had that view. I said, well, then why aren't we pro-abortion then? Because then a whole bunch of babies would go to heaven and never have to face, becoming sinners and then being lost forever in hell. See, that's the nonsensical nature of theology when you reach out with your human empathy to save babies, right? Because that's a good thing in a sense, but then you don't want to acknowledge the theological implications of that. So one possibility is God is a sadist. Yeah, that's possible. Okay, so yes, fangs, yes, there we go. Nom, fangs. So I mean, I'm doing the thing with fangs is he allows me to illustrate so much about all religions. Like you can literally, we just made up a religion and it's not very, hard, core. This is the doctrine of it, but it's like, it illustrates the point so well that you can just make up phrases and things like that. Do whatever you want. I mean, I'm all for multiple denomination fangsology. So, and I said before that we need multiple people to write gospels, and don't worry if they're contradictory, because we'll just do what theists do with the gospels of Jesus and just fix it. We'll come up with theology that justifies it. You can do anything you want. So
infinite. As the creator of everything, he can choose to do anything he wants.
And just because you create something doesn't necessarily give you, the authority to just do whatever you want. Like, I mean, a good example, because they use the example of children, it's like, I suppose me and my ex-wife did create 3 children in that sense. Doesn't mean that it justifies me doing anything I want to those children. Okay. It doesn't give me the, just authority over them to do whatever I want. I know a lot of Christian parents like to maintain that, but just because you create something, it doesn't necessarily follow that you can just do anything you want. Okay. If you're a moral being, you would at least have self-restrictions on what you can do with your creation. So, maybe you could argue that in theological circles, but then if God can't do evil, then is he really omnipotent? Okay. So there's that problem with it. So, oh, thanks, Alex. Welcome, citizen. Welcome to the Rabyd Nation. So always can use more members. It's how we maintain the emojis. So his membership. So yeah, the eternal God is eternal. That's a claim that's never been evidentially proven. It's just asserted. So, but yeah, so I don't know. We're getting deep dive theology here. So I'm very interested in hearing the conclusion of how we can know God and how that's accomplished. So, and whether that proves anything.
And in his boundless love, he chose to create us to be in relationship with him and know him.
Okay, all of that is a claim. And it is never evidentially given proof. Like when people give the gospel message, they will make that claim that God has created us to be in relationship with God and to enter a relationship with God. I'm not even sure the Bible supports that idea. I think the whole personal relationship with Jesus is a very modern idea of Christianity, though I imagine some mystics throughout all of time with Christianity, Christian mystics have maintained that. But I'm not sure the Bible gives the idea that anybody can have a relationship with God. He seems to be very infatuated with a certain tribe of people in the Middle East throughout most of the narrative. And he's still infatuated with that tribe when we have the New Testament and the Gospels and the book of Acts. So it's not the whole idea of personal relationship with God, I don't think is truly 100% historical throughout the whole of Christianity, let alone Christian theology for that matter. I just have never found that to be a very compelling thing. So it's a great sales pitch. Like God You can have answers to your problems from God himself by having a personal relationship with God. It's a great sales pitch. It's one of those, I've worked in retail a long time, and it's like one of those claims that'll catch your interest because it seems to give a lot of power over circumstances. This is how the gospel message plays on the emotions of people and the emotional desires of people. Okay, is by saying this personal relationship with God. It's an ego trip, really. It's your ego being played into. Like, you can have this relationship with God, and it. so we have this issue of salesmanship here, because I think this is the big sales pitch of modern Christianity and not necessarily Christianity throughout time. Like, the whole idea of personal relationships and the strength that comes from that is much more of a modern concept than it ever was in the past. I mean, a lot of the past is about survival. Okay, you joined the Christian faith in medieval Europe because it was a survival thing. Like, being outside of that group, you could have a lot of hard times. So Fangs jump from planet to planet and destroy planets by jumping through them. I don't know. He's a demigod, so he may just be concerned with what's going on planet Earth. So, I mean, we got to have some point where, Fangs feeds into our ego too. Like, he's all about Earth and humans and protecting them from the evil, religiously corrupted vegetables. So we got to figure out a way to get the ego trip in there, like this guy just did with the personal relationship with God. So yeah, they're always cool, but I get frustrated with bad theology because I used to be a theologian. The problem is now for me as an atheist, it's all bad. So it's just, yes, he's turning into a Star Trek energy being at this point. Yes. The animation, I give him credit. It's kind of cool sometimes, but it's like, yes, boundless love. Once again, God being loving, you don't really see that until the New Testament. There's a few odd statements in the Old Testament law about how God loves everybody, but it's rare. And it's much more of a New Testament concept than an Old Testament one. The idea of God being a loving father. Like, Jesus is the character of Jesus is the one who introduces the idea of God being a loving father figure. You have that a little bit in the Old Testament, but Jesus really pushes that angle and creates that mythology about God and basically change it. If you had the Old Testament God, it's like you can push the idea of all powerful, all knowledge, all present. I wouldn't see the Old Testament God as inherently loving as a father, though. You don't really see that until Jesus pushes that narrative. And that's why the whole Jesus being the Son of God is an important part of the Christian religious narrative, because it's like you have to have that to kind of make the sacrificial thing mean something. So Jesus didn't show up again today. I've been waiting for a while. It'd be the best proof of Christianity right now, wouldn't it? So, Jesus missed by one planet. I should split the moon into the light and dark half. Okay, yeah, might be a good one. Yeah, it's like, the thing is, we don't have to close the canon on Fangsology either. Like, we can keep writing shit. Okay, we just have to keep doing it. And he's kind of hateful himself. I mean, I remember when I was still a Christian and I was listening to Christopher Hitchens, and Christopher Hitchens is the one that made me aware that, oh, yeah, little Jesus, meek and mild, he's the one who kind of becomes the impetus for the creation of the doctrine of hell. Up until that point, the Jews didn't really have a doctrine of hell. It was Jesus who kind of made that, and the Christians who came up with it. So that's Florida. Okay. Oh, yeah. You have a mental pic of Fangs riding on a flying, talking donkey. I mean, we can do anything we want. It's like, The whole point I'm doing with Fangs is I'm illustrating that theologically you can do anything you want. You can make a character. It Religion requires a great deal of creative writing skills to make things that are nonsensical make sense. So so there's that. Yeah, we got to one up. We got to one up Muhammad and have two of them. So got to do that. So
In the Holy Scriptures, it's clear. He is unchanging, pure, and honorable in all.
okay, unchanging, pure, and honorable. Unchanging, no. God is said to have changed his mind or altered his thinking very clearly in the scriptures at least 7 times. Like it starts early with the flood story where he says, I am grieved and repentant that I made human beings in the first place. In other words, he's regretting his choice and now he wants to wipe them all out. Okay, like he has those moments where he's ready to like nuke the entirety of the Israelites that came out of Egypt, and God talks him down from it. So he can have his mind changed and has changed his mind. The immutability of God is the most easy part of God to debunk, in my opinion, if you're going to base it on the Holy Scriptures. God constantly changes the way he saves people. I mean, if you listen to dispensationalists, their theology absolutely undercuts the unchangeable nature of God because God is always changing his mind and the way he does things. And so it's like, no, is God honorable? No, no, he's not. He doesn't sometimes, because if he had killed the Israelites, he wouldn't have been even keeping his own word. Like it shouldn't even entered into an honorable God's thought process to kill his own people because they rebelled against him because he'd already made promises to them as God. And so, no, there's no honor to God really. At least not by my definition of honor. It's like if you're going to be honorable, you keep your word. And God breaks his word on a couple of occasions. So it's like, or he threatens to at least in the story. So it's like it's more of a it's more of is God all these things? I'm not sure. You said this guy says the Holy Scriptures backs this up. And it says it's very clear. No, it's not. If it was so damn clear, why do theologians argue about this stuff? It's like they argue about whether God is immutable. They argue about whether God is this, that, and the other. They argue about what does it mean for God to be honorable. They argue about those things. And they argue from the Holy Scriptures, quote unquote. So I don't know how this guy makes that claim, because if there's one thing that is very divisive is it's the interpretation of the people on the Holy Scriptures, because this is why you have like 40,000 denominations of Christianity. It's like there's reasons for that, okay, because there's disagreement about what the Scripture is and what it says. The Bible is the author of most of the confusion in Christianity because it's interpreted so many different ways. So there's that. Hey, Cranky. I'm not sure if John makes the claim, Cranky, that you're the father of Fangs. I don't know. I know that Lisa the Rainbow Giraffe is his mother, so, and not in a conventional way. So. Oh, you're jumping into your Bugatti chair on Super Sport 300 Plus. I wish, and was hitting the road away, far away. Yes, I mean it's like I get what you're trying to illustrate here because a lot of this is claims without evidence, and I can say shit like this all the time about Fangs too. Like Fangs is actually honorable. Like he keeps his word. He does change his mind, and he does change from time to time because he realizes the necessity of fitting into the situation and not being unchangeable and not being, an immovable prick. Yeah. So, Yes, Fangs reaps the sinful veggies and spares the pure. Fang Father 113. Oh man, I got to get to writing. I got to get to writing the initial Fangsology to everybody to run with. But yes, and yes, every denomination's the right one. So how as a former open theist, I did not maintain the immutability of God because of so much of the scripture showing God's changeable nature. Like the very fact that he regrets creating mankind is like, how can an omnipotent, all-knowing God regret a damn thing? Okay, like why would you regret something that you knew was going to be the outcome? Yeah, it's like, yeah. So there's that aspect of it. So, the genesis of Fangs, yes. I don't know. If Cranky Elder God is the father of Fangs, it's purely accidental. Like it's like, you know, it, and you have Lisa the Rainbow Draft ate all the other creator gods and then pooped out the universe. And one of those poops was perfectly round and turned into Fangs. That's my origin story for Fangs. So how that happened and whether Cranky is actually an elder god that led to the digestion and then ultimately the creation of Fangs, I have no idea. Oh, as always, but thus unchangeable. His mutability is part of his immutable nature. See, this is what I do with these reactions. We're allowed to use Fangs to illustrate the absurdity of what we're hearing. So, because that the whole immutable argument just drove me nuts because I'm like, the Bible pretty is clear that God changes a lot of things. His mind, his attitude, his form, his nature changes depending on the situation. Yahweh is very changeable. And Jesus has some of those qualities too. Like he's pestered by the one woman until finally he gives in, when she says, but even the dogs eat from the crumbs of the master's table. And he turns to her, your faith is great, and, has her, her child healed and all that stuff. And so it's like, we need a Fangs necklace. Fair enough. We do. So you don't approve? Well, I don't approve of the universe being made out of poo, but it makes sense. Truth is truth. I killed Earl, so yeah, it's not poo really. When it comes from Lisa the Rainbow Draft, it's not really poo. I mean, it's a different poo altogether. He's the first Platonic solid. He is immutable. He's always been an asshole. Well, that's true. That's probably the one part of the immutable nature this guy is talking about, that Yahweh's always been a dick. So, so there's the first Platonic solid. That's awesome.
His ways. And yet, he wants to welcome us into his family as children. He wants to be our Heavenly Father.
Fair enough.
But he is also King of all, seen and unseen, and he cannot ignore our rebellion. So when people defy his commands...
Okay, that's a very interesting statement that he can't ignore our rebellion. What, he doesn't have the power as a omnipotent, omniscient being to just forgive it and ignore it? This kind of puts humans in this category of we can do very significant things as long as they're shitty. Okay, but we can't do anything good. You're going to use Fangs as a misunderstood villain deity and deity. I approve. He's not really a villain, but everybody thinks he is. I can go with that. I can run with that kind of demigod. Seen and unseen daddy. Yeah, he's not around very much, is he? Kind of like absentee fathers. He kind of shows up, makes his kids, and disappears. I don't. The idea that he's the king of everything is also a claim that he rules everything simply because he creates it. there's a lot of people that have created things, but they're not in charge of them anymore. I think we can see the illustration there that sometimes in all mythology, you have something that the gods create and it runs amok. And so, God lost Adam and Eden. Yeah. Happens is within, the problem with the fall story, Kyle, and the problem I'm having with this video right at this moment is that God is the one who completely set up the situation that Adam and Eve were in, realizing that they were moral imbeciles. Like they didn't have they hadn't exercised their moral muscles yet, but somehow they knew what the knowledge of good and evil was enough. But that doesn't make sense, because if they eat of the tree of knowledge, that's when they supposedly gained that. But they're somehow supposed to know that it's evil to eat of one tree and good to eat of the other. And so there's this part of the story that if you take it literally, just doesn't make a damn bit of sense. If you take it as mythology to explain metaphorically what ancient people thought about mankind, then it makes a hell of a lot more sense. But you have to get rid of the literal interpretation of Adam and Eve. And this guy is not doing that. Okay. He can't ignore it's interesting that he puts it our rebellion, but the only two people that really were involved were Adam and Eve. And it always bothered me. How is that just to say that it seems to me if God was going to be a little bit more just about this situation, that Adam and Eve's children would have also had the same choice as well. Because I don't know how you have two people do something and the rest of the human race gets blamed for it later. But there is that attitude in Christian scripture and Old Testament scripture of, your sins get passed down to the next generation. And so, that's why you can blame the children's children and all that for the failures of the parents. Like there can still be consequences to your grandkids because of what you did. And I get that they're trying to use the religion to think about moral consequences and choices. And that's about the only good I can see in this story. But the rest of it becomes crap because there's no justice from God, because he's the one who set up the situation. It's like leaving an open container of bleach in the middle of the kitchen and telling your 2-year-old toddler not to drink from it, assuming that they even understood what they were dealing with. So, I do think theism is forced to limit gods, because otherwise, she bears to maul children, making fun of bald. Yeah, sounds fair. Yeah. And also pretty pointless to create a whole universe to just create one world that's full of life. Yes, kind of a waste of material there. It's one of my arguments against the creator God is well, then God is a very wasteful creator because he wastes a lot of material floating out there in space. And if this universe is designed for us, it kind of sucks, because most of the universe would kill us in a second. And even here on planet Earth, if we hadn't adapted to certain environments, some of those would kill us too. So, yeah. Oh yeah. He's a trickster god. Yeah, I buy the notion of Fangs being a trickster god. That he's not into open violence. He's more into sneaking up on the corrupted vegetables. So we see that in a lot of the artwork already, don't we, Earl? Got bored creating Mars. Yeah. He's like, yeah, let's give it kind of sort of the things that are necessary for life. But then about halfway through the project, he says, yeah, fuck it. I'm kind of done. So, thanks, stay puffed. We're going to do cereal at some point. Yes, I don't know. The collective mentality is pretty strong among Abrahamic mods. There's certain things they all agree to. And this is probably one of them, that the fall was detrimental to mankind. So
His anger burns against our actions. As the perfect judge, he upholds truth and righteousness.
And don't piss him off, because he'll kill you if you piss him off too. There's literally several verses of scripture that back that up. When I did my series, When God Kills, over and over, I would try to demonstrate that. Like, there are times when God just straight up, he can't rhetorically argue with somebody successfully because he's not that omniscient, but he can absolutely kill your ass if you disagree with him. Or if you pick up sticks on the Sabbath, damn, that's a high crime. That the justice for that, working on the Sabbath, should be death. I'm sorry, I have always had a problem with God's justice, even when I was a Christian, and now that I'm out of it, there's nothing just about the God of the Bible. The idea that killing your own son appeases all the sins of the world, I can't think of a more faulty justice system. A true justice system means that everybody gets nailed on their merit, not on just believing in something. So, yeah, so that's that. See you later, Katie. Have a good one. Size of the user was of you up to how everyone else insisted to keep his fucked up toys isolated. I suppose you're speaking from actual knowledge there, Cranky Elder God, so I'll bow to that. Yeah, he's not a perfect judge. It's pretty much might makes right with God. Like, I created it all, I have power over it all, so do what I say. That's not a moral system. That's authoritarianism. That's straight up, domination of the discussion. End of full stop. There is no moral questions really with God, to be honest. He's the big guy, and he gets to do what he wants. If we could travel with time, I would travel back to the garden and guard the tree so they wouldn't eat it. Yeah, I mean, the stories is made up mythology, so I'm not. But if it was real, I'm not sure this is the moment I would choose to go back into history. I'd probably go before this, and I would be there with God and say, God, do you think this is a good idea? I mean, do you really think that this is a good idea? Before you create light, can we talk? So, can we talk? No, yeah, I mean, but Yahweh probably did it anyway. He needed people to bully. So there's that. Jeffrey tried to tell him not to, but he wouldn't listen.
Even when it means destruction. The world is enslaved to rebellion against God. And he...
That's actually a claim without any evidence. You got to prove a God even exists to be in rebellion too. And that's not what Christianity or anybody does. They have a tendency at this point to just assume rebellion. I look at the Adam and Eve story, and I kind of see it a little bit differently. Yeah, you lose eternal life, but you gain something. You gain knowledge. And to be honest, when you look at the story, the only one that tells the truth in that story is the snake. So, I mean, even Yahweh lies there because they don't die immediately. It's just like, you will surely die in the future. Like, you're going to have some end. The price of knowledge is eternal life. And it's like, well, why would that be the price of gaining knowledge? Wouldn't knowledge be helpful? Wouldn't a knowledge of good and evil be beneficial? Because then it would allow you to navigate away from evil and towards the good. So I've never gotten why that was a bad thing anymore. I still don't get it. It was one of the parts of the story that always bothered me from the time I was a teenager, was this whole notion of, why is the knowledge of good and evil a bad thing? Because it seems like it would help us navigate the world better. So you give the bird to fictional things all the time. Do you think it was good? I was met with hold my beer. Did you personally hold Yahweh's beer on this one, Cranky? I mean, inquiring minds want to know. Yeah, I mean, this is another phrase. What does that mean? What does it mean to be enslaved to rebellion? Like, I'm in rebellion. Isn't that a willful act? But I can't help myself. I'm enslaved to it. I have to rebel because God has created a situation where I have to rebel. It's really a nonsensical phrase, because if we're enslaved to rebellion, then it's not really our fault. We can't help it. Okay. It's really somebody else who put us in the situation's fault. So we can blame Adam and Eve, I guess, for starting us down this path and putting the chains on, or we can blame God for setting up the situation. But everybody afterwards, how does that work with free will? If you're enslaved to rebellion, how do you have free will about doing the right thing? This is it's kind of really no. Which God? You once again, Maverick, you keep making claims without evidence. So paramount, most ideal, are right. No, they're not. I'm sorry. That's a claim without any evidence. So you don't have any connection to a God based on what we know. We can literally go through the history of mankind where we learned things that didn't have anything to do with God. So hey, thanks, Fred. Cannot make me such that I am doomed and tell me that I deserved it. Yes, I think that's the problem I have with the expression of enslaved to rebellion. And thanks, Fred. Because you're basically enslaved to continue to do something that you can't stop doing, and then you're blamed, and the justice says that then you have to be punished for it. Okay. You don't have that aspect of, okay, where's God's justice in that, where people can't help but sin, but we're going to punish them for their sin. So, I don't know. I've gotten past that nonsensical idea. Most of the gospel is based on nonsense to me at this point, because you can't help but be rebellious, and God's going to get you for it unless you believe in his son Jesus, who he punished, who was also God, who appeased himself. It's a whole circular, nonsensical framework. So, oh, thanks, Martin. Appreciate it. I think we're at 4 here. But yeah, let's see what else we got.
And
here.
he mourns our rebellion.
Does he mourn our rebellion? Seeing that he kind of needs it in order to send his son Jesus. It's kind of part of the plan, ain't it? It's the plan of God to have us sin so he can redeem us from our sin. I've heard that argument too. What this guy is saying is not universally held by Christians. I'll just put it that way. So, from T saying, he lost his rainbow, cheap God. Fred, you're doomed and you deserve it. Oh my gosh. There we go. Well, thank you guys. I think we're halfway to our goal today. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. But hey, you know what? We're an hour in. So a lot of people have been waiting for this particular hat because it supposedly makes me an official atheist. And of course, being a Godfather fan, I've always loved this hat too. But I think the fedora has finally arrived. And so I don't know if this makes me officially an official YouTube atheist, but there we go. So yes, the hat is here. But yeah. So, But yeah, this is the Godfather style. It's got like the little Godfather band on it and full screen pack. Full screen. Okay, all right, yes, all right. I got to remove there we go. There's a little dust on it. It's been hanging around here. I'm totally cleaning right now. So I think I managed to get it dirty right before the stream. So, but there it is. And let's see, it's got the band on it. And then, if you remember The Godfather, they had that kind of style. So, yeah, so there we go. Hat reveal. A little dirty because I think I was cleaning earlier. So, yes, Ed Capone. Earl likes this one too. Yeah, I'll have to clean it off. It'll be better. But it's like, you see this being worn by a lot of the henchmen in the background during The Godfather. So it's a very classy boss one. So, but yes, but there it is. Oh, Mario, his book was cool. The pervy vehicle. Okay, very much. Oh, all right, there you go. Yeah, I need some more color. I've been working on that. The next hat will probably not be black, gray, or blue. I mean, I did do the purple top hat, but I only wear that when I'm speaking as cathara for fangs. So when it's the true doctrine of fangs. So, and anybody can do that. You just have to buy the hat and put it on your head, and then you can make up whatever about fangs you want. So, yeah, it doesn't fit this shirt. I was bad about that because I'm like, I don't have any black shirts. They're all dirty. I got to do laundry tomorrow morning. Ex cathedra. Yeah, that's what it is. Cathedra or whatever it is. Yeah, I got to do that. But yeah. All right. Well, let's see. Okay, we're right there. Let's see what else he has to say.
But God is also all-powerful. So powerful, he can redeem the unholy and transform it with love and righteousness.
Does that really require power? I mean, does redemption and forgiveness actually require power? You're reading up on Pentecostal doctrine to get inspired. There's a lot there. Be warned. There's a lot of weirdness. But yeah, but I'm still not convinced that. I mean, I have limited power, and I can like forgive whoever I want to. I don't think forgiveness and redemption require a damn bit of power. It's like it's not one of those things to. So, yeah, I tend to wear black too, a lot for the same reason. I tend to be mourning over my lost youth and young adulthood and mid adulthood, being a minister and all that stuff. So black tends to be my color these days. So, but yeah. Jake Elwood and Ed. Blues Brothers 3. Yeah, I could do it. I love that. I love the original one. That was funny. I haven't watched it in a while though. But I don't buy the idea that you need an omnipotent God to do redemption. It seems like God could have just like, hey, you know what? You screwed up and it's kind of my fault. So let's fix it. Why would you need it to forgive, and forgive who for what? It's kind of one of those things. Yeah, Metallica's Black Album. Yeah. So underrated, in my opinion, compared to some of the early stuff. But I don't know. I've never understood the concept of sellout. You keep making albums and more people like you. It doesn't make you a sellout. It just makes you popular for sport. All right. Well, there you go. I can see it like if somebody came out of like an Amish background that always wore black and they suddenly became very colorful all the time, I could absolutely see it. Absolutely. So there's that.
He can draw us close to him. With patience and generosity, he cares for his children.
Hey, did anybody catch the ram in the thicket imagery there? I'm going to go back. Because this is the excuse. Yeah, there it is. This is the excuse I hear about the Abraham story. Like, it was always God's plan to have the ram in the thicket and never sacrifice Isaac. I said, well, why don't we just go with that plan? Why put somebody through the mental anguish of having to make that kind of decision in the first place? I mean, and how is it good to even ask somebody to do that to their kid? These are all questions. I mean, I know Mindshift got into a pretty heated argument this last week over that stuff, because he did one on Abraham and how he wasn't a good guy, and then he had to do an even longer video dealing with all the comments. Even though he handled objections at the end, I was like, oh my God. Yes, he starts the whole thing off and then asks us to pay for it. Oh, the omnipotent, powerful, omniscient sadist. I appreciate Mindshift too. I like his perspective because I don't think he is a former minister, so he comes at it from just a believer's perspective and why he doesn't believe anymore, and I think that's bonus. And he definitely tries to, dot the I's and cross the T's with the scriptural stuff a lot better than many. So I kind of enjoy him for that reason.
Generosity, he cares for his children, guiding them, encouraging them,
and nuking them out of existence when they piss him off, and leading them into places of difficulty that they have to grumble about so he can kill them again because they piss him off because they're grumbling. He lets them be enslaved in Egypt for 400 years. He, on and on the list goes of the things that Yahweh has put his children through, putting them through a test at the beginning for which there was no way that they were going to be successful in getting it done. On and on and on the list goes of the crappy things that God has done as a parent. Okay, I mean, yes, 40 years of wandering, is that part? It's like all this stuff he puts his people through, puts his own son, he treats his kids well, and he has one of them crucified. Okay. Yeah, I mean, we all do pretty well for not being cared for by a God. You come to understand that there's a lot of people in your life that care about you, even when you don't want them to sometimes, and they treat your welfare as real, and it's not a bad thing. But yeah, I'm not impressed with God's parenting skills.
His favor is abundant, and when he makes promises, he is faithful to keep them.
I challenge that last statement of whether he's faithful to keep them. I think if he spoke through Jesus and only one generation was supposed to pass before Jesus's return again, that didn't happen. He certainly didn't give. I mean, he promised the whole land and that he would make sure they inherited the whole land. But then when they didn't pull it off, he blamed them. And so it didn't keep his promise. The rainbow thing, I don't know. What's the time here? It's a little after 7, Brian. And by the way, welcome. Good to see you. So, Jesus got nailed good, though. Yeah, I mean, you're wandering around. It's also a pretty small piece of land for 2 million people to be wandering around in. You have to have the manna from heaven story, because otherwise it wouldn't have made sense to the people that knew that area. Like there's a reason why even to this day it's a sparsely populated place. Like there's nothing there. So, I don't know. It's kind of, I don't know. In this picture, I think it's kind of he's the kind of the light that creates the rainbow. There's always that. So you've seen one preacher in all of your 4 days there. in China. Yeah, they're kind of harsh on religion there. I know there's a thriving church there, but it's underground. So it's definitely one of those things. All right.
He is ever present, bigger than we can imagine, but also close, personal. The King of all, yet also Father.
Claim, and another claim. So I could literally write this same thing, like Fangs is all, he's close to everybody, he's intimate with everybody, but he's also bigger than we can imagine. He's larger than we can. I can literally insert your deity here with all these claims. I just don't. I don't understand how people don't realize that you can literally insert a God with a lot of statements that are made about God. Which one becomes a really big question. So, Fangs always nibbles at your heart. Oh, that is such a good phrase. Fangs always nibbles my heart. Oh my goodness. I think we found a catchphrase for sure with the Fangsolatry and everything else. So the basic reason I don't believe in God is because I can't tell the difference between. You can tell the difference between fantasy and reality. Yeah, it is so odd, isn't it? Like it's like Fangs always nibbles my heart. He nibbles at my heart. That is awe. That is just sweet. It's cute. It's absolutely cute. Oh my goodness. It's also probably good inspiration for an emoji of Fangs nibbling at a heart. That would be one. I've seen it now. It popped into my head. Sorry, Earl. I know you got like a lot on your plate right now. But we'll definitely have to look into that one. Got to remember to do that. But yeah, this is. I don't know what to do here other than to say the claim that God is close and yet far away and big is contradictory. If he's omnipresent, the idea of close or far away is irrelevant. So, like an artichoke heart. Oh, yeah, maybe not. Yeah, it really is because I can literally pull the gospel message out, and if I change the characters involved, I can make it completely different. I can do that. That's the problem with the whole Bible is I can pull Yahweh's name out and insert Loki, and it would actually probably make more sense. But I've just had too much experience with this stuff and doing theology that it just doesn't make any sense to me as a former theologian / pastor, now atheist. It's like I can literally write, fan fiction about a God and do as well as the Bible. So it's kind of one of the things that we're trying to illustrate here, particularly with Fangs. So I kind of enjoy not seeing any religious people in public can now go out and not have to pray Hell Jesus, God, Allah, and so on. It's kind of nice to be in an environment where people is I have had that experience when I went to Europe. I've gone to some other places in the United States where I don't get preached at, and it's nice. They're trying to use governmental force to encourage religion, whereas I think China uses governmental force to discourage it. So Fangs is righteous being of unparalleled vengeance. May we all know his benevolent wrath. Oh, he is a trickster god, so we need to keep that in mind. Him and Loki are friends. So, I think we should also make the claim right now that Fangs is the one who taught Loki how to be a trickster. He's the mentor and Loki is the student. So we got to keep that in mind.
He is perfect in every way, including his love for us.
Okay, I'm sorry if I'm going to draw up the image of God having perfect love for me. I'm not even sure what the hell that means. What do you mean by perfect love? Because to me, love seems so very subjective. Like it's got to alter itself depending on, like, I wouldn't express my love towards each of my children the exact same way because they're all different people. And I want to, I know what resonates with each one of my children differently as far as love. Like, I can hug them all. They all respond to that, but it's what I say to them that's often very different. Like with my daughter, I'm always very encouraging of her. She's raising 5 kids. She loves it, but at times you could tell it's getting to her. And I just, put my arms around her and say, "Hey, you're doing a good job. You're a fantastic person. Don't worry about it. Just teach them to be good people." With my middle child, a hug means a lot to him, and just, he also suffers from high functioning depression. So we relate on that, but it's all, what is perfect love? To me, love expresses itself in different ways depending on who you're loving. And so I don't know if a perfect love is even possible unless you're tailoring it to each person. So I don't even know what that means. So there's that. Yeah. Yeah. Odin never found out, man. He never found out that Fangs was teaching Loki the whole time. See, that's how tricky Fangs is. He doesn't get caught. He's a bunny. So he just disappears into the innocent bunny act. And, Odin just looked down and said, "Oh, what a cute rabbit." Um, and moved along, never realizing the true story. So, so there's that.
He sees us not only as slaves to rebellion, but also as children he created and plans to free.
Okay, well, why not just do it then? Why are we waiting? Why are we waiting around for God to free us from our sins? I mean, I'm sorry, if I felt all my kids were being enslaved by something and I could do something about it, it would be like that. I wouldn't want them to live in that state where they're constantly being diminished as human beings. I'd rather push them into something else better. So I have no idea why we're waiting then. Okay, so I don't know. Somebody needs to take on like the holiness aspects of this. And Agora, I'm going to say this. This might be the cause of many schisms, which would be great. We embrace schism around here. The multitude of denominations about Fangs doesn't harm us at all. It's just another facet of Fangs and the difference of opinion on how many vegetables, what vegetables to eat. Right up our alley. We embrace diversity of theological opinion here. So, oh, yeah. I mean, it's like, why are we waiting? But why are we waiting around for that too? Alex, it's like, why don't we just eliminate the hell thing and then everybody's saved from hell? Oh, wait, God doesn't want to do that. I can't think of any more diabolical doctrine than the doctrine of hell. But to me, it's just like, why are we waiting around for redemption then? Why does it take so long? Well, because the religious bullshit has to continue. And to me, you get rid of the problem by getting rid of hell altogether. Then everybody's redeemed. Now, to the JW's credit, they get rid of hell and they say it's just annihilation. But why does God lack the persuasive power to do all of that? I don't think you're right there, because the Bible speaks about redeeming his people as a whole group, not just individually. That's a very narrow-minded view of what the Bible says. Is grass a vegetable? Yes, it's deep and vast, Agora. Just keep going. You'll find the end of it. We haven't got a redemption arc yet, but I'm coming up with something just like Christians do. It does rule the whole point of Christianity. Like if the whole is redemption, well, it's also the idea that God even sacrificed all that much for redemption. I mean, it was a bad weekend for Jesus, but the story would have been more appealing if Jesus gives up his divinity and his life forever to redeem mankind. Like he doesn't rise from the dead, but it could be proven that his sacrifice saved humanity. That's a far more sacrifice by God, where God literally sacrifices a part of himself to redeem mankind in the form of Jesus. That would have made a hell of a lot more sense. But as it turns out, it's just a bad weekend. He does make a good mascot for the channel. I mean, it fits my name. So we go down rabbit holes all the time. It's like, it's great. I'm not, math exams make sense in the sense that it tests a person's knowledge, but testing here on earth doesn't make any sense either. I mean, especially when you already have a God who knows the outcome of the test. I mean, testing for math, teachers, I used to be a teacher. I didn't know the outcome of how my kids were going to do necessarily. I had a good idea, but I did not know that. And so testing makes sense because of ignorance. But sorry, the testing God does doesn't make any sense because God isn't ignorant. Okay, he knows what's going to happen. So that it's the testing that God does that doesn't make any sense. Yes, but God knows if we're going to fail. He knows absolutely whether we're going to succeed or fail. That's very unteacher-like. A teacher doesn't know that his student is necessarily going to pass or fail. Completely different scenario. It doesn't correlate. So, yes, math teachers are also not gods. So, I mean, it's you're dealing with something that's supposedly infinite and infinite in its knowledge and power, and then you're dealing with teachers of math tests who are not. And so those is completely two different things. So it's about merit, but I thought it was about faith in Jesus. Faith in Jesus doesn't have any merit. I mean, the gospel literally leads to the conclusion that you can be an axe murderer, serial killer, and if you give your heart to Jesus the last year of your life, you're going to be in heaven. And if a person just lives their good life, doesn't harm anybody, goes to work every day, comes home, dies, but never accepts the gospel message, they go to hell. That's not merits. That's not about testing, is about merits. And the redemption story doesn't have that at all. Okay. There is no merit in what saves you or doesn't. It's all about the merit of Jesus. Okay. And whether you've accepted that or not. It absolutely is completely relevant. You're the one that's deflecting. Thanks for illustrating deflection. Your God knows everything, including the outcome of the test. Like before he would give a test as a teacher, he would know whatever kid would get on it and whether they would pass or fail. I'm not deflecting. I'm pointing out that there's an obvious difference between God and a regular teacher giving a math test. Okay. So collective salvation is a deep topic. The modern church focuses too much on the individual. Yes, I would argue as well that the Bible is very much about group redemption, more than individual. That's individualism is more a product of Western. You can also encounter hardships and get over them without faith. It proves nothing. The Stoics had ideas of faith, and they did not have any Christian God. Overcoming adversity led to greater things in their life in the here and now. You don't have to have a God to believe that. As far as overcoming hardships, so the people that overcome hardships using the wrong faith, does that justify their faith? I mean, you have a lot of problems that you haven't really addressed, Maverick. Like, number one, you still haven't proven that God exists. And two, you haven't proven that it's your God that exists. Okay, the one you created in your head. So to me, I didn't bring up the teacher thing. You did. Okay, I know what teaches me, and I don't necessarily have to have a God to have something teach me something. So I was a pastor for 20 years, and I have degrees in this shit, Maverick. I have a degree from a Bible college. I have a degree from a seminary. Okay, I absolutely know how to explain Bible. I'm literally telling you stuff that I used to say as a Christian. Okay, you're the one that's just not facing what your belief system says. Okay, you're not facing the logical conclusions of what your faith is. I'm sorry, I know what Christians do because I was one for a long time. And I was a pastor for a long time. And I had to explain these things to my parishioners all the time. So I know what Christians believe, Maverick. And for you to dodge that, that's just dishonest on your part. A lot of Christians absolutely know the Bible better than most, or a lot of atheists know the Bible better than Christians. That's why they're atheists. So I'm sorry. I know a lot of what teaches me, and God not required, redemption story not required. I think you're living with an ego trip that says, I'm going to live an eternal life other than other people that don't accept this message. It's very elitist, and it's very ego trippy. So I'm just not there anymore. So.
He invites us to know him and live in relationship with him by his power, with his joy and peace.
Power, joy, and peace. The same power he uses to kill his people many times just because he gets pissed off. Joy in what? I don't know if I'd ever find joy in just spending eternity with somebody that wants me to constantly live in a constant state of slavery to him. I don't see that that's joy or not. And yeah, peace. I have more peace as an atheist because I'm not trying to appease some God that claims that he knows a bunch of stuff. And, I'm not constantly worried about whether I'm fit, if I have enough faith. So I'm kind of out of that. I have more peace now in a lot of ways than I had before. So, yes, why test if the deity is all knowing? That's kind of been my point. It's like there's no point in a test if you already know the outcome. If you know the absolute outcome of what the world's going to be at the end, before you even start the test, why bother? I mean, if I was a scientist and could absolutely prove that I know where an experiment is going, why run the experiment and waste the resources? Let's get to the conclusion and run a different experiment based on that. So God's kind of a real shitty inquirer. So I think that's the end. So I'm going to remove him. I don't know that I really buy all this. There was a lot of claims with no evidential backing to them. There was a lot of stuff that he just asserted and didn't provide a lot of evidence for. In other words, pretty typical piece of theology. So, and as somebody with a master's degree in theology, I can kind of speak a little expertise on that. I've read a lot of theologians, and in the end, we're all going around the same circle and trying to figure out a God that basically there's a God we've accepted in our mind and our imagination when we've created. And then we're trying to justify that God to other people through theology. So it's kind of the way theology works. And this is a pretty good example of that. It's a sales pitch too. And I probably should emphasize that a little bit more. Like there's a big ego trip to being one of the select few that knows God. I think wasn't it Jeremiah? I think Jeremiah said it, let him who boast in this, that he knows and understands me. And I think that's an invitation for somebody to sit there and say that I know God better than you do. And that's kind of I would say that at the end of this video, there was a lot of claims, but there was no evidence given for those claims, which is typical of most theist arguments. So it's, I just don't, I don't know. I kind of figured this is where he was going to go. His channel is full of stuff like this. I mean, and he does a lot of commentary on a lot of Jesus films where the life of Jesus has been taken on in film too. So there's a lot of stuff to Jesus film as a channel, but most of the time his assumptions, still are there. And this wasn't probably designed with the atheist in mind, but the idea of knowing God is something that I think if God wanted to make more clear, he could. Okay. And he could make it absolutely clear of what he expects out of, yeah. Okay. Well, actually, wait. The deity needs a test to check if it's still all-knowing. If it doesn't test us, it tests itself. Starting to come together. Okay. So God is all-knowing, but he doesn't know that he's all-knowing. That seems a little contradictory. But it makes perfect sense if you're in the theological frame of mind. But yes, a test doesn't make any sense if you already know the outcome. Why test something if you already know absolutely what the outcome will be? There's no point in putting all that stuff through there. So, but yeah, I just don't have the sensibilities anymore to buy this stuff anymore. I guess I know what the con is, and I don't buy the con anymore. So, but yeah, it's been a very interesting little road there. But I don't know. We'll see if somebody else can give us something. But I've been doing it. I love you theists when you come in, but I think one of the things that people don't realize about me sometimes when they get it, they just see the rabid atheist and they think I'm just another atheist. I got the educational creds to back me up on what Christians believe and know. I literally spent my life studying the Bible up into a certain point. And, I got degrees in it. I have a degree from a Bible college. I have a degree from a seminary. It's like I know what's taught there. I probably know the Bible better than most Christians, for sure. I ran into that all the time as a pastor. And so, when you make this, an unbeliever explaining, why? Because you have to be a Christian to properly understand it. That doesn't sound like a cult at all. Sarcasm flag. It's like, I always love the Christian claim, well, anybody can read the Bible and understand it. But then when you come to a different understanding of it than they do, you non-believers really can't explain Christianity to Christians. And so it's like, it's always the double take, and that would have come. So, but to know the outcome of a test does not need to happen before there's an outcome. Yes. See, that's kind of my point. If you know the outcome of the test, it doesn't need to happen. Okay. It just doesn't need to happen. If I knew what every kid in my class was going to get as far as the score, what the composite score was going to be ahead of time, before I even gave the test, and I could prove that would be the case over and over, I would stop giving tests. Okay. There's no point. The test is supposed to be a teaching tool. Well, what does it teach us? I'm sorry. I've seen people come to, I've heard stories of people come to absolutely horrible ends, never achieve anything in their life. What test is that for them? Okay. It's like, I don't get the test aspects, because obviously there are people that die as children. There are people that die very young or before they even have a chance. I mean, an infant dying in a crib, what's the test for them? Okay. What is that test? So the idea that life is a test just has never washed with me, because if it's a test, it's a pretty shitty one. It certainly isn't fairly distributed. And it certainly everybody isn't given the proper good knowledge to even pass it. So I don't know. But if it's the mind of God, it does exist to know. See, I argued that as an open theist once, because I would argue that if it exists in the mind of God, it in a sense does exist. So, well, yeah, I mean, that would be nice if that was the case, Michael, that if, that God doesn't rely on belief, it needs verifiable evidence to know what it knows. I guess I could see that. Damn it, chat. You guys are so quick today. I'm always getting in late. Yeah. But if you already know the outcomes, then you don't need to test, prove omni-God cannot exist. So, but doesn't he create robots? I mean, I'm sorry, but he already knows the outcome of the choice too. So what's the point? I mean, this is where Calvinism comes from, because Calvinism basically says he knows the outcome of the choice, and that everybody is predestined to either be redeemed or not. Okay, in order to maintain God's sovereignty is why they do that. Okay, so is there free will? Because a Calvinist Christian would argue there isn't either, that free will is a nonsensical concept. They at least acknowledge that. As far as he doesn't want robots, how do you know what God wants? Are you privy to his counsels? Are you like listening to what he has to say? I mean, I don't see that he ever says that in the Bible. I mean, robots didn't really exist as a concept, but this notion that somehow he would know the outcome of everything would lead to Calvinism and determinism, hard determinism. Okay, I mean, I'm sorry, even if you do it with God's omniscience is such that he knows the outcome. And so he, by creating us in the first place, he, in a sense, caused everybody that's either going to know him or not. Okay, so he's the first cause in a chain of redemption that nobody can escape from once it started. Okay, he already knows. There's nothing holy about the Bible. It's written by human beings, and it's been used over the years. You have to prove that the Bible is holy to me. Okay, it's not holy, and it's not his word, as far as I can tell. Yeah, I think a lot of us have chosen to believe it's bollocks. Okay, I'm sorry. I spent my lifetime trying to make the Bible make sense. There's too many contradictions, and there's too many unholy things, if you will, to make me think it's. Was it their choice? Because here's the thing: they wouldn't have had to make that choice if the choice wasn't presented. It's God who presented the choice. Okay. But if he never presents that choice, then evil never happens either. He could have prevented evil by not giving them a choice. Okay. And so God still remains the author of evil and the author of sin. Now, none of this really belief stuff exists. As Earl points out, the Garden of Eden and Adam and Eve are complete mythology. They have no historical backing whatsoever. In fact, I would argue up until Joshua, you don't have any historical backing either, that it's completely mythology. But yeah, they didn't exist. And so the issue is kind of moot for us. Okay, you have to prove that Adam and Eve existed and made that choice. And you haven't done that either. So yes, Moses never existed. There's no evidence that they existed. Like, you're talking about a massive cover up that would have to span literally 2,000 years of history of that. But the people who wrote the Bible in about 600 BC and following didn't know that. And so they just made shit up. So, I mean, they literally just made shit up for that part of it. And it's complete mythology. There's no evidence for Moses. There's no evidence for the wanderings in the wilderness. There's no evidence for the people of Israel being in Egypt. And Egypt is one of the most studied things archaeologically and scholarly that we have, mostly because of the pyramids. And there's no evidence that they even existed there. None whatsoever. And that is significant. People get acquitted because there's no evidence against them. Okay. I get you're convinced about this, but it's like there's no evidence that anything in the Bible is historical, really. Even the Gospels have a large amount of problems historically because they're hearsay. So, yes, if they didn't know the difference between right and wrong, okay, when they're faced with that test, how is their choice right or wrong? Okay, they didn't have the knowledge of good and evil until they take of the knowledge of good and evil. So how would they know what was good and evil in the first place? They wouldn't have the ability to even assess that. So I'm sorry, the theology at this point breaks down because it's just not there. Christians go back to a story written, a couple thousand years ago that was trying to make a completely different point than they wanted to make, and they reinvent it and they retcon it in. So I'm not following Darwin. See, that's a false dichotomy. You're saying I have to follow Darwin and you have to follow Jesus, but that's a false dichotomy. I follow no one. I'm done with following. Okay. But no, Darwin was a Christian, by the way, and he was a Christian up until the end. And it wasn't his theory of evolution that caused him to lose his Christianity. It was the fact that God allows so much suffering in the world. The problem of evil argument got to him. Okay, and it got to me too a long time ago. Now I kind of accept this is the way the world is, which is a far better framework. But that's a false dichotomy. There's the option of not following anybody. There's the option of following Buddha. There's the option of following Confucius. There's the option of following Taoism. There's the option of following Islam. There's the option of following Judaism. Like, you have literally thousands of gods, thousands of religions to choose from. And don't put me in this false dichotomy box of having to follow Darwin or Jesus. Okay. That's very black and white thinking, and it's just not something that I deal with anymore. How can they choose evil if they don't know what evil is until they take of the tree? This is the biggest flaw in this theology, and I wrestled with it as a theologian and as a Christian for years. They can't know what evil is until they take of what. How can they choose to do evil if they don't even know what evil is? Okay. Yeah, we don't follow Darwin. Thank you. Hey, thanks, Pinworm. I like it too. I do a hat reveal every once in a while if I get enough super chats. I don't know if I'm going to have my live stream on Friday where I let people in yet. We're still 5 super chats short, but I'm autistic, so I'm leery about letting people into my stream. So I have trouble with social constructs, and I don't know what's going on when that happens. Yeah, I just get to the point of accepting that this is the way the world is. And once you accept that, it's a lot easier to take. Like, suffering, what we call evil, is just the way it is. And we try to minimize it. We try to make it, but it's not going away because the nature of the universe is very hostile to human beings. Okay. It is the way humans are. It is the way the world is. And once you accept that reality, you can actually come up with better solutions to it. So yeah, the Bible does say that God created evil. It literally says that. If Asa was here, he'd give me the verse in about 5 seconds from now, but he's not here, I don't think. He's dealing with his mother, I think. So I'd say pray for him, but we don't believe in that unless you want to pray to Fangs. So yeah, we're the only world destroying animals on the planet. We're the only animal that destroys its own environment that it has to live in. I don't know. I think there's other animals that do that too. There's a beaver dam nearby here, and it's absolutely destroyed the forest behind it. So, so I think there's just some things we do, and it's just bad for us and bad for everything else. So yeah, beavers. That depends on what beaver we're talking about. But yeah, I drive by it every day when I come home from work, and it's like backed up the water of the little stream that it's on, and like it's destroyed like a half acre of forest. So that's starting to turn into swampland. So eating beavers is religious. Okay. How did I know sooner or later any discussion on certain things turns sexual? It happens every time. Yeah, well, there we go. There we go. The human beaver. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I get what you're saying, John. It's just like, but every bears like literally rip trees to shreds. Every animal has to kind of do something to the environment to survive in it. It's just we're kind of really bad at it. Like we do the most to our environment to live in it. Nom nom indeed. Oh man. You were afraid about joke about that. Yes, pinworm, you should be very afraid of certain subjects. I mean, I'm talking earlier, pinworm, about how the carrot is the holy vegetable of fangsolatry, and somebody immediately has to say that it's a phallic symbol, and then somebody else has to say, isn't that kind of related to some sort of toys that adults use? And I don't understand the need to follow anybody either. I try to assess everything now. I think the change in me being an atheist is like I'm looking for evidence, I'm looking for proof, and I'm also discovering something else that sometimes there isn't evidence or proof, and I'm okay with not knowing um, a definitive answer. I'm getting more okay with not having the hard black and white answers anymore. Like there may be some things I never know or understand. Hey, Azo, you are here. Oh, Azo, on the spot. Knew it. I form the light. I create darkness. I make peace. I create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. Okay, so God openly admits himself that he creates evil, Yahweh himself. Okay, so it's one of those verses that excusagists have to explain away all the time. And they've come up with interesting ones. Yeah, see. Thanks, Asso. I appreciate that. You are usually on the spot with that, and I appreciate that so much. Because I'm a little bit busy during a live stream to look shit up all the time. Yeah, it's okay not to know. I think I've got over the ego trip that religion implants in you that you got to know the answer about everything. God is this answer to everything, and I just don't have the need for it anymore. I realize that I'm colossally ignorant about a great many things, and I'm okay with that. Okay, and I'm never going to know. I'm going to go to my death not knowing stuff. Okay, so it's like it's the human condition. And of course, we go to bananas. Bananas aren't vegetables, technically, I don't think. I think they're fruit. So, I don't know. Yeah, because somebody had to mention cucumbers. Yes, they're purposely designed by humans like pugs. Oh, I remember what was it? The old series, was it the History Channel that did Life Without People? And one of the first things they make note of is all our little toy dogs are doomed. Gay, because they just don't have any survival traits anymore. They're designed to be cute. So, by humans. You're only too short of a threesome last night. Will happen. Okay, there you go. let us go, Dennis. Yeah, I'll probably tell you that. Oh my gosh. Yes, no kink shaming, please. Yes, we're not going to do that. Earl, there's some that will probably make it simply on force of will alone, but as breeding continues without human beings, all the dogs would end up being like wild packs of dogs that would all look more uniform. But yeah, it's like the right BLT is swift for the lettuce. Elongated edible fruits, particularly technically berries. Really, they grow in large tree-like Habacusa plants of the genus. Okay, so that's what Google says. They're technically berries. I did not know that. But yeah, I can see that. I don't know if they're gone. I the problem with Christians, okay, and my channel is, and this is almost 5.5 years of doing this now. Speaking, so it's my experience. They come here thinking it's an easy fight, and they quickly run into somebody who knows the Bible probably better than they do. And when I point out verses that they don't think about in their theology that directly contradict what they say, they have a problem with that. Maverick's come here many times, okay, and he's never gotten anywhere with any of us. So if I'm using my BA in ministry I got from Trinity Bible College, I would say his technique sucks because it doesn't get any results. Okay. And I would say that about all presuppositional apologetics as well. It sucks because it doesn't get any converts. It just keeps people in the faith. And so I don't know if they lurk and wait or they just do whatever. I try to talk to them in such a way where I try to be respectful, but it's like there's difficult times, John, because like we've gone over this before, literally with you, and you still haven't answered my question. Okay, sometimes. Okay. My fear of him eating my face if I die is not unfounded. Yeah, I get it. BLT is also a vegetable. Yeah, except the B part, I think. Google is always right, except 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Can't be all that bad. What kind of dog? I think we made their mind think about porn, and now they go watch that. There might be a lot of truth to that, John. I've told this story before, but I remember going to a conference as a minister. All of us AG ministers went to it, and we were all held up in this one hotel. And when we got home, we got a letter from the denomination expressing their disappointment because during the time that we were there, the porn use of the porn channel during our time there was 5 times normal then. So there's that. But yeah, I think that's what they do. So, only more than you can make them. I make them subscribers for 20 minutes on deconversion hangout, and it seems to get rid of most of them. There's a few that'll hang around. Hey, Hurricane. Salute. Yeah. Oh, yes. The funny thing is porn in red states and Christian, and it's funny what's searched too. They're so against trans, but T-girl is like one of the top searches in the South for porn. So that's true. Yeah, we're 5 times more than, but we're talking normal, like regular secular people here, Martin, like regular human beings that go and watch porn when they want to. We're 5 times less than the entire 2 days that we were there. So youth pastor conferences, that does happen a lot. We got reports about that when I was inside the denomination. So don't ignore the like button. Nibblers, you know what you want. Trust that it wants you to. So, yes, if you don't sin, what is there for JC to redeem? Yeah. So, yeah. Hold on. I do have to do a couple more things before I call it a stream. But I need to put on the other hat to do so. So now I'm speaking officially. Yeah, they made Grinder crash. Remember that? It's funny because we know it goes on. So we know what happens. Yes. Thanks to Larry. Yes. Yes. Oh, but yeah, I wanted to reiterate some of the Fangs lore that came up last stream. And I want to, this picture here is prophetic in the fact that the reason the carrot is crying is because there is no religion to purify it from. And Fangs did not know that at the time. And then suddenly realized that the carrot is the only true holy vegetable that doesn't need to be sanctified by his power. So, um, so, so there's that aspect. So we need to understand the carrots are the holy vegetable, and the rest of them have been corrupted. So we got to figure out how they're corrupted by religion and all of that. So I do believe this is an emoji for you guys, so you can always remind people of that. That there's a reason why the carrot is crying. Now, this is of course contrasted to our minions who are crying for a very different reason, because they are corrupted vegetables. So, and Fangs, like, oops, I think I ate one of your brothers or sisters. See, Fangs doesn't have to eat the entire vegetable to get the stuff out of it. He only has to put his fangs into it like a vampire, take the religion out. So, but yes, but this is a very beautiful piece. I still get a chuckle out of it every time I see it. So, but I love the fact that Earl created that. Yes, that's kind of like the Catholic thing. Yeah, I'm speaking officially. But I also open this up. Cranker, all you have to do is buy a cheap knockoff of the hat and do it too. So, so there's. Oh, Dad has more children than Mom. Yes, that also exists where religious thing is too. I mean, speaking of Mormons. Oh, curtsies. Yes. But this is still one of my favorite pictures now. I still giggle about it. But yeah, it's so perfect. And I still love the look on Fangs' face on this one. Like, oops, sorry about that. I probably should have just, stuck my fangs in and not ate the whole onion. He's got onion breath. Yes, the little grumpus in the back is hilarious. If you can see him back middle. Yeah, it's just funny. They got a couple of those in the back. So, but yes, but yeah, I mean, I remember, gosh, I remember those days of being in Christianity and how so many of my fellow brothers in the Assemblies of God that were preachers ended up being cast out of the church because of either porn use or actually having an affair. And I mean, I kind of get it now, but it's still something that it was amazing. It's inspired by a school photo of yours. I could see that. I have like 2 school photos I still have of classes I had when I was in elementary. And I think my mother kept one too. I can relate. I was always the kid I was always so tall for my class. They put me in the back row and off to the side because my face was usually in a perpetual non-emotional state. So, oh, yeah. Yeah, this is Hurricane. This is one of Earl's works. Definitely proud to say that too. Oh my goodness. Oh. Oh, you were the grumpy onion? Okay, there we go. Yeah, you were the grumpy onion. I was more of the why do we have to take pictures guys too, so that's definitely a thing. But yes. So, trying to think if there's any other official doctrines of fangs at this point. We're looking for gospel writers to just make stuff up. So, if you have a gospel of fangs you want to write, it doesn't have to line up with any others. Like you can be like the Gospels of Jesus and just do something unique. So you can do that. So, but we're looking for Gospels of fangs. I'm going to probably start writing my own. Just to have the official, unofficial in quotes. Fangs is a bunny, but he's also not a bunny. Jacob 33 and the hooded fang. Yeah, there you go. See, I mean, you have fun. I mean, my whole design, I think Earl and Me's design of this is for everybody to have fun with it. I use it often, and it's the same way the skeptic does Lisa the Rainbow Giraffe, because his whole point of doing that is to illustrate that you can believe in anything if you really, and if you want to justify it, you can figure out how to justify it too. I don't know, he might be more. I mean, rabbits multiply a lot more than Yahweh and company, so he might be many, many, many bunnies in one. So, all with special powers. We can play that game too. Yeah, let's go beyond the Trinity. We got to outdo Yahweh and company. I mean, come on. Yeah, we got to do better. Got to do better, people. Yeah, there's oodles of bunnies. My dad used to raise bunnies. That's my prophetic thing of why I am now the prophet of fangs, is that I used to help my dad with the rabbits all the time when I was a kid. And yeah, I lost track of how many of the mothers had like litters of 10 to 15 little baby rabbits. So 20 bunnies in a trench coat. Oh, there we go. Pretty much. I mean, he's horny as a rabbit. I mean, I can't match him, and I'm pretty high up there, so 69 wabbit or duck season. Bangs is not a bunny, he's the bunny, but he's also many bunnies in one. So this is all true facts. These are all true facts. I think we did establish today that Fangs was the rabbit that taught Loki how to be a trickster god. You know, the beauty of Fangs being many bunnies is he can appear in any bunny form that he wants. So, I mean, he's very versatile. His true form is still black with fangs, with red eyes. So, you know, he does that when he's on his holidays and days off. And he's honest about it. Like if you try to pray to Fangs on his days off, he's not getting up. He's too busy enjoying his drink. Yes, always. And we also established that Fangs nibbles on your heart. That's how he's trying to get your attention, is to nibble on your heart. Going to lean into it, maybe growing back his tail or his lucky rabbit's foot. That would be interesting. Like a before and after artwork. That would be great. Like Fangs coming in with just a lucky rabbit's foot in his hand crying, and then the next picture there's another rabbit there after the guy prays for him. It's called a multi-innie. Okay, I can go with that. See, I don't know. Should have the red parts inside the ears in a horn shape. Yeah, I don't know. I like them the way they are. He has the innocent bunny look that I was going for, but he still has fangs. He still has red eyes, and he's not as innocent as he appears. So I kind of like that. Yeah, I'm like, you could do like 3 pictures, you know, Fangs coming in with a lucky rabbit's foot, having the faith healer vegetable pray over the rabbit's foot, and then in the next one, there's another rabbit there. I think that would be great. We just got to figure out what the vegetable is going to be that's praying. Fangs is Fang, not some Satan clone. Yeah, yeah, he's his own thing. I don't want to have. I don't want satanic references with Fangs. He's a demigod. He's beyond all that. So. Yeah, this is horny, but better self-control, or lack of opportunity, or reliant on other things like that. Yeah, I mean, and everything we're talking about here just illustrates how religions can go and why there's so many. And if I did this 1,000 years ago, there might literally be today temples with bunnies in them. It's like, or doing a 4 square fangs, that would work too. Yep, absolutely. So there's that. So yeah, but absolutely, I'm down. There's the real thing, Earl, is I knew you'd have trouble narrowing it down. There is so much Pentecostal nonsense that there's just a lot. Yeah, this is how this is how we got cats. I mean, the Egyptians worshipped cats, and we're kind of still there. Yeah, I know. I know you're doing your research, Earl. I got you going down this rabbit hole, pun intended, for the Rabyd atheist. Yeah, see, I'm the Rabyd atheist with a BYD, and Fangs is the rabbit atheist. He's the true rabbit atheist. So, yes, lions that you can hug. Well, yeah, true, Martin. I'm not going to read that out loud, but yes, I can understand half of the human race being there. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. But yeah. So yeah, we've done a little lore today. I'm kind of glad for that. There's connections with other gods. There's all the demigod Fangs is coming into his form. He's becoming true. And oh, Earl. Oh. I've said it before, Fred, that all references to bunnies and rabbits are foreshadowing of Fangs. So, like, this hat is actually like the White Rabbit style Mad Hatter kind of hat, which I felt fit the priestly cast of our religion perfectly. Um, but no, the White Rabbit is just kind of a foreshadowing of probably one of many of Fang's actual forms, because he's been doing all the foreshadowing for himself, because he's a multi-unity kind of deity. So Earl's been anointed. She has a White Rabbit tattoo. I actually liked Alice in Wonderland as a read because it challenged my brain. Yes, the prophecies are true. All the prophecies have come to fruition. Fangs the rabbit has arrived in his fullest form, because there are too many vegetables that are corrupted by religion. So, well, the argument is he prolific, or is he just another manifestation of himself and another bunny? Is he the kind of deity that can take over another rabbit and become that rabbit and then become something else whenever they want to? It's a real, see, because rabbits, you can take real rabbits and give them superpowers, and one of them would definitely be like the multiplicity of rabbits. Like you could definitely make one of the superpowers the ability to turn into multiple rabbits, as a superhero with that one. The hearing, the heightened senses, the teeth. Rabbits, the speed you could have, obviously Fangs is very fast because he's a rabbit. Yes, Jefferson Airplane's White Rabbit is one of the official hymns. of fangology. So, I've listed a few official foods of the cult, like Easter with all its Easter bunny candy. That's a reference to fangs. We also have, like, I don't know where you're from. I can't remember if Blue Bunny is a regional ice cream or not, but we have Blue Bunny ice cream in Michigan for sure. And it actually it doesn't have deer tracks. It has bunny tracks ice cream. So yes, I agree. I agree. White Rabbit is an official hymn. So made White Rabbit all too well. Yeah. Cadbury cream eggs. Yes, that works. Like, yes, this is my point, is it's believable. Like, if you get rid of the ridiculousness, Hurricane, how is this any different than any religion you've ever had? I mean, I literally could talk about this stuff all day of how this is. I don't know. I don't know if anybody can make fangs music. I don't know. I don't know if anybody wants to hear me singing White Rabbit by Jefferson Airplane, so I'm pretty sure that's out. I'm not sure how you do a choral arrangement with it either. I'm sure some magician could pull it off. Oh, yes. And Underworld is also definitely foreshadowing. I can see that. I can definitely see that. You know a guy? Okay, you know a guy. All right. Very well. I mean, I'm just saying, what's a cult without music? Without, we need something to chant. When Fangs is nibbling on all of our hearts, we need to move into song somehow. I mean, I can do this. I was a pastor for years, so I know how this works. Oh yes, Googling the Lindt Golden Chocolate Easter Bunny. Yes, and there is a cultic schism, by the way, as to whether the bunny should be solid or hollow. As one of those little, I'm more of a solid chocolate bunny traditionalist compared to the hollow bunny modernist. He mixes his own stuff. All right, well, there you go. Hand him the idea. Yeah, solid equals more chocolate, so more true, more traditional. Yeah. Whale citizenship. We're back to that. Oh, milk chocolate, yes. Milk chocolate, yes. But there's so many bunnies out there. Like I stocked the Easter section this year because I'm the one that builds it and makes it, and then I have to stock it. That's my job. And for all the holidays, really. And the amount of rabbit candy of all types is just amazing to me. And all of it is holy to Fangs. So, oh, that will never be a thing. You don't think whales will ever get citizenship? I have to say, Earl, that was like one of the funnest nights of my life. Still very, yeah. Is it rabbit or rabid candy? But yeah, the whole whale citizenship argument, that was just so hilarious. It was one of the best nights I've had ever. So yeah, I don't know. It's rabid candy. I'm not sure. Things get blurry between the prophet and the actual demigod. So. Oh man. Oh, what a night. It's been a great night, guys. But I do think I'm getting tired. Yeah, it was one of my best moments in life, honestly, Earl. Top 10, easy. But yeah, but I'm kind of getting a little bit tired here. I didn't sleep as well as I'd like. So so I will I think I'm going to call it a stream, and done some lore, we've reacted to a video, and we've had a good time. And I think, it's kind of my mood. I even got to argue with a theist briefly. So, land rights for the gay whales. Okay, I'm going to get all that. Good night, everybody. I do appreciate all of you. You guys are just awesome. And it's just been a real pleasure to stream with you guys, as always. But make sure you give all your allegiance to Fangs. May your teeth ever be pointy like his, and nom nom, and may he nibble on your heart more and more. I think that's the message we got out of here today. Thanks, Evan, for that. That was beautifully thought of, beautifully done. So thank you all so very much. It's been a great stream. Thanks for everybody who donated. I'm going to try this week and maybe next to get back to video production too. So, but I emphasize the word try. But yeah, the future of this looks really good, and I'm glad that we're having a good time with all of it, and also making some progress. So thank you very, 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 very much. Appreciate all of you. Yes, nibble on, Chad, nibble on. So, and as always, live your best life, guys. You only get one go around and then it's over. So you want to take all your time, money, and opportunities and use them on yourself and the people you love and care for, and to make this a better world. You'll be happier if you do. And don't waste them on the trappings of religion and faith. I speak from experience. The only religion you should really follow, honestly, is Fangs anymore. So Fangs Hollow will always be there for you. So that's a claim without evidence I'm willing to make. And as always, guys, I really appreciate all of you stopping by. It's made my evening. But I do need to go get something to eat. So thank you very much. And I will catch you all next time.